Hello, I'm Chris, and this is my changing your bearings on your TRAXXAS motor. If it starts getting loud, making weird noises, your bearings need to be replaced. You want to replace them before they take a crap. So if you let it get so bad that the inner race falls out and you only have the outer race, you might not be able to get the bearing out, and you might have to just do the buyback program. TRAXXAS will buy these motors back for around $50. All right, go ahead and get the motor out. So we're gonna go ahead and pop this cover off. So the bearing on the front was tight. I used 3-in-1 oil to free them up. They both spun super free before I put them back together. I already ran this truck, but the motor's a little bit loud. Bearings are only $6, so let's change them out. These can have thread lock on them, so make sure you get a good... Oh, we stripped it. Okay, well that's lesson 1 in the video. You might strip these out because they have thread lock, and that's why they sell the kit with the little screws. But on this channel, we figure things out. So hopefully you have a Dremel. We're going to turn those into flathead screws. So we just used one of those little thin cutting discs, small screwdriver. See what we did in case your screws get stripped. You can replace your screws or just use these. It doesn't matter. Okay, so you might need a small screwdriver to get this little top off. So the other one had a aluminum cover. Not sure which one is the older one or the new one. I'm gonna assume this is the older one. Okay, so they can have these little spacers in there, so be careful. See those little washer things right here? This one has them on that side of the bearing. There was only one. The other motor had them between that little brass piece and here. So just get a razor blade and just kind of see if it has them on there. Don't try to knock that stuff off. That's epoxy where they use to balance this. Just get a screwdriver. It'll wedge in there. You can hear the bearings making noise. If you wait too long to do this and that inner race just falls out, you might not be able to get your bearing out. But if that inner race is in there, let's just get it out in 1 second. So the instructions tell you to use the little tool that comes with your TRAXXAS, put it in there, knock it out. Let's just give it one little hit. Boom, bearing is out in 1 second. Okay, so it's 5mm on the inside, 11 outside, and then 4 thick. So it's the same dimensions as the wheel bearing, but why do they use the blue ones on the wheel bearings and then this on the motor? So let's say you don't have your little tool right here. You're gonna find a socket on your 1/4-inch stuff that will fit right in that hole, or if you have this tool set, like most people do, 4mm one fits right in that hole. This would actually be way better to use even over this thing right here. So we can't just knock it out flat on the table because where's the bearing gonna go? So we have to create something. These pliers are gonna work perfect. Oh, look, it just, I didn't even, well, that was cool. It just fell out. Well, I'll tell you why that one happened, because that oil helped it. You know, that guy was saying he don't know how that thing got water in it. Clearly, these bearings have water in them. So these bearings are trash. So we're not going on no fancy workbench or anything like that. This is a hollow IKEA table. We did go get some kind of straight bracket so we don't punch a hole through our table, but we're gonna need flat surfaces to knock this bearing in. It's something heavy. Use whatever you want. We're just gonna use this random stuff. These bearings don't have to be pressed in there, but they might have to be tapped. So 2 different motors. We have plastic, aluminum. Obviously it's gonna be harder to get the bearing in this aluminum piece. So we can use oil to help lubricate it. So both of these motors work fine. This one did have rust in it. It was locked up, and we're just using this cleaner right here. Look at that, beautiful. Okay, so it's a lot cleaner now, and it looks good. All right, inside of the motor, this was the rusty one. Better not be ether. Man, I gotta turn the ceiling fan on. Fuck, that's out. Get raped. Now these are the typical wheel bearings. Now, why did we buy these metal bearings? Because these motors can get super duper hot, and I'm sure these are high heat seals and they could work, but I don't want these things to melt and burn up and cause any issues. Both motors had these metal bearings. You see what we have here? This is what we're going to put in both of them. Exactly what came out of them. They could have easily put these bearings in there, but they did not. But yes, they fit in there perfect. And I guess you could use them if you wanted to. These were $6 for 2. We're going to be using tools like this that have flat edges to knock the bearing in there straight. The aluminum one is going to be the hard one to get in there, so we can go ahead and put a little bit of oil in there. So always kind of look at the way it's going in there. It's going in there crooked. And literally just put pressure on the side that's not going in there evenly. Okay. All right, so once you get it a little bit in there, and then you can tap it in there. So I'm gonna look for a nice flat side. You can do it with your hand. Okay. See how bouncy that table is? I'm doing that on purpose. I can do it on a bouncy table. All right. All right, once you hear like metal sound, just look at it from the side, bearings in there all the way. It's gonna be a little more difficult on the metal pieces. To test your bearing, get you a flathead screwdriver in there. It'll wedge up against the bearing and just spin it. Beautifulness. That's why we're using this screwdriver, because you see we wedge it on there like that, and it'll help us get it in there started. This one is gonna be harder, and I recommend getting a socket, like your 1/4 inch socket, or something that fits like that on the bearing. So we have this nut driver, 7mm. You got to work square. It tells you to get a big flathead screwdriver that's wider than the bearing in the instructions. That would work, but so will this. Okay, it went in there. Perfect. Beautiful. Look what we just found. The TRAXXAS toolkit has this right here. Look. So we could have used this to put the bearing in there. I hope that makes sense, that this tool is wider than the whole bearing, so that when we pushed it in, see how those two raised edges, it's not going to allow us to mess this up. All right, so that little raised area, it's in the motor too. You know, I'm sure there's some videos that blow through this real quick, but I like to slow things down so that you understand this. So this one's ready to be put back together. Let's do the other motor. Now we have this tape on there for those little motor spacers, and that's what it talks about on the instructions. These were right here. I don't think it's going to hurt too much if they're not in there, but that's where they were on this motor, and that's where they're going to go back. So this can be a little tricky, the direction of it, and you can screw it up, and when you do, you're going to poke a hole through your sticker like I did the first time. The other motor has the little spacers on this side, down on that bearing, but this one does not. Be careful. This thing could jerk and maybe, oh! All right, little brass bushing. The kit with the screws also comes with that brass bushing. Okay, don't try to spin it or anything. Wait until you get this bearing on there and just kind of line the holes up gently. And now you can spin it. Oh my God. So go ahead and give it a little play front and back. It feels perfectly fine. You want a little bit of clearance. And look at that. It's quiet, spins perfect. Okay, so we're doing 2 different motors. One appears to be an older one, this one. Hopefully this one's as easy. Center it on that bearing. Okay, beautiful. So remember I said this one had the little bushing or spacer, just one, right there. Let's go ahead and put the screws back in. And then the little cover that goes over them is going to keep them from coming out. So you don't have to worry about them getting loose. All right, so you see what we did there. People always wonder, why do you have so much stuff? Where do you get all this stuff? You spend too much money. And I'm like, no, I don't. So for $12, we saved 2 motors with bad bearings. Both of these motors already run. They just had noisy bearings. And now they're both silent and they're both ready to go. So how much money did we save? We saved about $90 to $100, and both of these motors are ready to go. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.